Today we're going to cover Chapter 6. Okay, so all of you that jumped before, go on back to Chapter 6. The topic today is learning. It's my favorite chapter in the book. But usually when I survey students at the end of the quarter, say what was your favorite chapter, it doesn't appear to be Chapter 6 for very many people. Most of you will say Chapter 10 is my favorite, because that's when we talk about consciousness, we talk about sleep and dreams and stuff like that. So we'll get there for Test 3. But Test 2 is going to be looking at one of the two chapters is learning. The second one, which is strongly related, Chapter 7 is memory. My PhD is in cognitive experimental psychology, so that's my area of expertise. That's why I love these two chapters. And as a student, I couldn't wait to teach these chapters because I thought, oh, this is so fun. I can teach this. I can teach it better. My teachers taught it. You know, this is fun stuff. Boy, has my bubble been burst. It still seems to be the chapter. When we survey psychology teachers nationwide, they usually report the chapter that students struggle with the most. College students in general struggle with the chapter on learning. But if you would just stick with it, it's almost like you can feel the light bulb go off, if this makes sense. What is learning? I don't use the board too often because my handwriting's so poor, but let's look at, I'll put a couple of definitions on here again. With the definitions, this is the definition I'm using. You can say it in another way. The book probably even gives you a different definition. Put these definitions in your own words, and that'll help you remember them. Because it's the concept you're trying to learn, not the exact definition. But I like this definition of learning because it tells us so much. What is learning? Learning is the relatively permanent change in behavior that's brought about by experience. The relatively permanent change, and that's the abbreviation for change, no, I'm lazy, in behavior brought about by experience. We're going to go back to that definition and see how it applies to these different types of learning we're going to talk about. Chapter 6 is devoted to 3 types of learning. Y'all know what the 3 types of learning are?
Visual, auditory, is it kinetic or kinesthetic?
Yes, but not in the terms of grand terms of learning that we're talking about in this class. Those are different types of modes of learning. And so somebody may have learned, I'm a visual learner, I like to see things. That's what they're talking about. I'm an auditory learner. If you tell me, I can remember it. What the 3 types, general types, categories of learning are learning by association. And it has a name. It's classical conditioning. So one type of learning we're going to talk about today is classical conditioning. And this is learning associations. Second type of learning we're going to talk about today is learning by consequences. Did you learn that way? Consequences. Another name for learning by consequences is going to be operant conditioning.
Operant?
What was that? Operant. So we've got classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and the third type of learning that I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about because it's so easy. I think if you read it, you pretty much click. So I'm not going to spend a lot of lecture time on that. It's learning by observation, also known as modeling. So we've got classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and modeling. We're going to start with classical conditioning. I said it's learning and association now. Okay, let's put classical conditioning into our own words. Classical conditioning. This is the type of learning where you're learning and association between 2 stimuli. Now, somewhere around 1915, don't quote the year, but somewhere, that's how long ago it was, there was a Russian physiologist by the name of Ivan Pavlov. He had won the Nobel Prize in Science for his work on digestion. In his lab, as he studied digestion, what he said is, what he, I guess, was one of the first people to find this out. I don't know exactly why he won the Nobel Prize, but he really studied saliva. He said the first phase of digestion of saliva. That when you put food in the mouth, saliva is produced and it helps break down the food. Now, he used dogs. For you not from Georgia, dogs, but he used dogs in his studies. These were live dogs. So I'm going to tell you a story that, again, this is one of the lies I tell you, but it's to show you, to help you remember the gist of it. So I'm going to tell a lie about Pavlov. Don't go around the rest of your life thinking that this truly happened. But the gist of the story can be remembered best if you put it in story form, can it? So, here's Dr. Pavlov. Kaylin without the T, right? Kaylin is going to be Dr. Pavlov. And you have a lab with a dog in it, right? And you measure his saliva, you break it down and do all kinds of fancy stuff with it. Well, you have a graduate student in your lab. It's you. I'm your graduate student. And it happens quite often. This is not a lie, this is true. Oftentimes students get crushes on the professors. I know that happens. But anyway, I have a crush on Dr. Pavlov. And I'm trying to give Dr. Pavlov hints that I have a crush. But you know those mad scientists that are so crazy, their heads up in the cloud, they don't have any common sense. He's not catching on. Like, what can I do, I think? Well, one day I bring him a present. Dr. Pavlov, here's a bell. And I want you to ring me anytime you need me, okay? Day or night, for any reason, any time of the night, any time of the day you need me, you ring the bell and I'll be there, and I will fulfill any need you have. Y'all caught on, right? What she's doing? Dr. Pavlov, mad scientist, he doesn't know she's flirting with him, but he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. So he takes the bell and he says, well, I'm not going to stir it away, I've got to do something with it. I know, I'll put it over the door to the lab where my dogs are stored, right? And so he's got a dog inside this small little lab, this real small room. The dog has a little tube coming out of his mouth that catches the saliva. And what he's been studying is when you feed the dog, saliva is produced, and he's been breaking that saliva down and studying it. Well, now there's a bell over the door. So when the lab assistant comes in to feed the dog, she opens the door, the bell goes off. What does the dog do the first time he hears the bell?
Looks at the door.
He's going to look in that direction. He may even bark, growl or something. He's going to orient to that sound. He's going to show that he noticed the sound. And that's called an orienting response. He'll give you a response. Look toward that sound, make a noise, bark or something. But that's basically what he does. And about a second later, it's a small lab, remember, the door opens, the lab assistant's carrying the food, she puts the food tray down, the dog starts to eat, right? After 2, 3, maybe 4 days of this, probably won't take that long, the door opens, the bell goes off. What does the dog do when he hears the bell now, after several days?
Starts salivating.
He starts salivating. Why is he salivating? There's no food yet.
Because when that bell goes off, he knows he's getting food.
He can anticipate food. Very good. His behavior's changed, hasn't it? His behavior's changed due to what?
Experiences.
Experience. Look at there. Is that not learning? It's a relatively permanent change in behavior that's brought about by experience. He now salivates before he gets the food. And you know from his response to salivating that he knows something, doesn't he? He can't talk to us and say, I know I'm about to get fed, but he's talking orally. He's talking to us so by his behavior changing. We know he knows he's about to get fed because he starts preparing for the food in advance. He starts salivating. Now, that is an example of classical conditioning. It's that simple. Doesn't get any more complicated than that, truly. That is classical conditioning. In that experiment with Pavlov's dog, Pavlov recognized, hey, I'm on to something here. I can show you that the dog has learned something, even though the dog can't talk to me. So that changed the direction of his research from then on. But when he reported this in the United States, when researchers heard about the United States, John Watson heard about it, and he became very excited. And he said, remember, we're arguing about what psychology should be the study of. We've got structuralists saying it should be the study of the structure of the mind. We've got the functionalists saying, no, it should be the study of the function or the purposes of of behaviors. So now we've got John Watson Reed and Tavlov's research, and he said this is what psychology should be the study of. Psychology should be the study of observable behavior. Remember that was part of our definition from chapter 1 in history. Study of our observable behavior. I can observe that the dog's behavior has changed. And so from around 1920 until nearly 1970, the school of thought in psychology remained behaviorism. This is the nuts and bolts of behaviorism. Psychology should study observable behaviors. Now, even though truly classical conditioning is that easy, you can see what happens here. It gets a little bit more complicated because each of those steps has a name. In classical conditioning, you have 4 components. You have a CS, a UCS, a CR, and a UCR. The CS, that stands for conditioned stimulus. Think of conditioned as meaning learned. In the back of your mind, just say conditioned means learned. Unconditioned stimulus, unlearned. Unlearned. What did learning require? Experience, right? So the conditioned stimulus, and put it in your own words, but I'll say something like this. The conditioned stimulus is something that leads to a response after an experience. You can say it in another way. You can say it in the way the book has said it. Make up your own definition. But basically that's what it is. It's something that will lead to a response after learning has occurred, after you've had some experience. The unconditioned stimulus is something that leads to a response without any learning necessary. No experience necessary. Any experience necessary. 2 more components are the responses. One of them is a learned response. The CR is conditioned response. This is the behavior that results from the experience. And then you have the unconditioned response. It's the behavior that occurs without experience necessary, right? So it's the behavior that results without experience necessary. Now, don't internalize those definitions. Let's go back to Pavlov's original study. I lied about how the study came about. I don't know why a bell was placed over the door, and I doubt somebody had a crush on him, but, you know, he was the one to find that the dog would change his behavior and start salivating to the sound of the bell. The gist of the story is accurate.
What did you say those last 2? What was CR? Conditioned response? Okay.
And UCR is unconditioned response. Remember, we're thinking as conditioned as meaning learned, and unconditioned as meaning unlearned. I think if you'll put those little tidbits in your mind, it'll help you separate things later. Because that story I just gave you, all 4 components are in them. All 4 components are in that story.
Can you say that again, the last 2?
Conditioned response is the CR, and the unconditioned response is the UCR.
The behavior that...
Can't read my writing? What's wrong with you?
You know they quit teaching
Conditioned
cursive.
response, isn't it? That's what it is. It's not my poor writing. It's just y'all weren't taught to read cursive.
I don't know what that is.
Conditioned response, the behavior that results from the experience. But again, if you look in Calix's textbook, he's going to give you a different definition that probably sounds a lot better than mine, or you could even come up with your own definition. It's really the behavior that's going to follow the CS. And that's probably what he has in the book. But I want you to see, I give it a little bit different because I want you to see where these terms are originating. Behavior that results from the experience is the conditioned response. The behavior that results without any experience necessary. That's the unconditioned response. And notice the responses are your behaviors. And the stimulus is something, is a thing. So let's,
How is CS and CR, how are they different? Like,
Right.
Okay. The CS results from, it's the behavior that comes after the experience, right? It's the new behavior. Without experience, it's the UCR behavior. The UCR is going to follow the UCS. Let's look at it. Let's take Pavlov's study and find out what all four components are. Okay. What did he do? The dog, originally, when you put the food in the dog's mouth, what did it do? It salivated, exactly. Did mommy dog teach baby dog to salivate when food gets put in its mouth? No, it knew that naturally, didn't it? You do it as well. Have you noticed that? When you put food, you can even think about your favorite food right now, and you'll notice saliva starts being produced. Okay. Anyway, that's the first phase of digestion. No one had to teach you that. That occurs naturally. So something led to a response without any experience necessary, right? So you have two of those components. What do you have? Exactly. UCS and UCR. What's the UCS? Food is UCS. What's the UCR? Salivation. Do y'all get that? Helen's up here copying it. Okay, so in Pavlov's study, the UCS is going to be food, which naturally leads to what? What is the response to food? Salivation. But there's an experience that occurs. Food gets associated with what?
The noise,
The bell. The food and the bell over time signals food's going to arrive. Bell means I'm about to get fed, right? Bell, fed. Food, bell, food. Over time, the bell becomes, the dog starts responding to a new way to the bell, doesn't he? What does the dog do to the bell, the sound of the bell? How does he respond after he waits?
Gets excited, I don't know.
He gets excited.
If it's a trained dog, then he's just gonna, chill, wait to be fed.
He may look like he's chilling, but I guarantee you he's doing something else. If you were to look at his mouth, what would he be doing? It would be salivating. Okay? So, what we have now is the bell leads to a response of salivation. What's the bell? Which one of these four is the bell?
Yes.
It's CF, salivation. CR. And look at there. Not always, but many times, the UCR and the CR are the same thing. Both of them are salivation, aren't they? Okay, in this case. What you would find is that there would be more salivation to the real food than just anticipating the food. There's going to be more spit in there when you really eat it. Okay. But what got associated? Classical conditioning is learning and association between two stimuli. What did the dog really learn?
When the bell rings, she's about to get fed.
He learns to associate these two things. The UCS and the CS. Right? When the bell goes off, I'm going to get fed. He makes that association, that connection, and that's classical conditioning. And his behavior starts changing with the bell, with the CS. That's as simple as it really is. All you have to do is memorize one of the scenarios, and you'll do fine. You'll be able to pick them out on the test. Because you know already on the test, she's going to give me some classical conditioning paradigms and have me tell which one's the CS, UCS, CR, UCR. You've got it right. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's the one that's in the book. Remember, I don't like to give you examples that are in the book because you can read them yourself. But since that's the classic, I went and gave you that example. But let's go through a couple more. Notice also, as we go through these, that the bell, the CS, has to occur when?
When you have an experience, like when you learn something because something else happened.
But the CS has to occur when in time. In the book, there's a term called temporal contingency. What does that refer to? It's referring to the CS. In time, when does that bell, is it important when the bell occurs? Should I ring the bell and 3 hours later feed the dog? Ring the bell, 3 hours later feed the dog. Will the dog start salivating to the bell? No, it's too far apart, right? How about if I feed the dog and as he's eating start ringing the bell? Feed the dog. No again? It's not giving him any new information, is it? It's just redundant. He's already got the food. So what temporal contingency means is that the CS has to occur before the ECS. Bell's got to go off before you give them the food in a relatively short amount of time. If you separate it too much, there's no connection made.
Can you say that word again? Temporal?
Temporal contingency. That's a term in chapter 6. It's in italics, it's not bold. That's one of the terms to consider when you're looking at
Temporal what? Condition.
contingency. Temporal contingency. Okay. Now, let's say, can you recall learning anything by classical conditioning? Is this just for dogs, or do humans learn this way as well?
Now humans learn this way as well.
Yeah. Let's say that you are going into psychology and you're going to be a therapist, and you're looking a little bit tired. Let me wake you up. You're going to be a sex therapist. Well, you're not necessarily, you're a marriage and family therapist. If you're a marriage and family therapist, you got to learn a lot about sex, because lots of times that's where the problem goes back to. So let's say that you're a marriage and family therapist, and a couple comes in to see you, and they've been married less than a year, and already the marriage is on the rocks. I wanted to say that. And you start questioning, well, what kind of problem are you having, you say? And I don't want to appear sexist here, but this is more likely to be the problem. That the female, the wife, is saying, he wants sex all the time. And he's saying, she don't want to have sex anymore. Before we got married, she had sex like a rabbit. But now, no. My friends told me that. You marry her, she's going to stop having sex. And sure enough, she fooled me. I put the ring on her finger and hey. And you look at the wife and say, is that true? Have you reduced the frequency of sex with your husband now that you're married? She goes, I sure have. It's no longer me. I used to think it was me he wanted to have sex with. Any old woman would do that. We were in town the other day, and a woman presses about her high heel shoes, and I looked over at my husband, and he's aroused. Right? So, no, it's not me. Why do I want to have sex with somebody that just wants to have sex with anybody? So, I admit, we're having sex less often. And so, well, tell me, when did you notice this started? And she says, well, one reason that I was attracted to him in the first place is that he recognized my love of shoes early on. And he would buy me shoes as gifts all the time. And I thought that was so sweet. And that's what attracted me to him originally, because he's not that good of, nice looking, but he'll buy me shoes. On our wedding night, before we went to our honeymoon, we were going on honeymoon the next day, so we just went back to the apartment that night. We were flying out to Hawaii the next day. But when we got back to the apartment that night, we got in bed, something hit my back. Pair of shoes. Oh, that's great. So I moved shoes out of the bed. When we got back from our honeymoon, he bought me a present. And guys can't decorate. They're not good at that. But he bought a lamp for the side of the bed. But guess what the lamp looked like?
Pair of shoes.
Pair of shoes. The base of it was big old red high heel shoes in the whole lampshade. It was so tacky. I didn't want to hurt his feelings because I'm a nice lady. I accidentally broke it when I was cleaning the room that week. The other thing, tacky thing went down my room. And that night when we got to bed, for the first time, I don't know what I mean. It wouldn't work. No sex that night.
Performance issues.
So then I started making the connection. Wait a minute, it's not me he wants to have sex with, it's shoes. He's a pervert. I married a pervert. He is sexually attracted to shoes. And, prove it. Yesterday we were in town, a girl walked by in our high heel shoes, and what did I say? He got her off. So, would you want to sleep with somebody like that, perverted? I just don't want to have sex with them anymore. Now, as a marriage and family therapist, you could help them with this problem without understanding why his fetish came about. But aren't you a little bit curious how he could have developed that fetish? And so maybe you want to ask him, well, let's go back through your history. Tell me about when you were a young boy, or how old were you when you discovered sex, found out about sex? And he says, well, I was 19 years old. And I discovered that if I pulled on my penis, it felt really good. And I'd be sitting in the living room just going at it, playing with it, just touching it. And one day, Mama walks in, and she sees me on my penis out, and I'm playing with it. And she freaks out. She starts screaming and yelling, and she says, no, don't do that. It'll grow crooked, or you'll get hair on your hand. Don't ever touch that thing again. Don't do that. That's bad. And I love my mama. I was real close with my mama, and I'm sitting here thinking, Mama said no, but it sure feels good. Mama said no, but it sure feels good. Who's going to win?
Sure feels good.
Sure feels good, love it. They're going to win. But he's learned something important, hasn't he? He's learned, let's not do that in the living room where someone can see me. I need that. Since I'm going to continue doing this, I'm going to find a secret place. So he goes up into the attic, away from everybody. Nobody ever goes up in the attic. And he gets far back in the corner, and he starts masturbating. And he does that for the next 10 years. I don't know, year after year after year. He's up there masturbating in secrecy in the attic. And right beside him as he's masturbating is what?
Pair of shoes.
His mama's pack of shoes. She wore to the prom, and she just stuck right in the He's masturbating. He's looking into those shoes. Before long, just looking at a pair of high heel shoes can get him sexually aroused, can it? Sexual arousal.
It's like the bell and the boot.
It's like the bell and the boot. It's classically conditioned, isn't it? Do you know most fetishes are the result of classical conditioning? Okay, Logan, you said it's the bell and the boot. What are they? Let's feel it. What occurred in that? What? It's something that led to a behavior without any experience necessary.
Him
Didn't have to be trained on this.
getting caught.
Getting caught. What did you say, Kayla? Masturbation? It's hard to say that word out loud, isn't it? I feel proud of myself. Able to say that out loud. Masturbation led to what? Mama didn't teach him this. He learned it on his own. What did masturbation lead to?
Arousement.
More than arousal. This led to the big O.
The big got that O face.
That's the big O. Y'all know what that is, okay? Over time, masturbation gets associated with something.
Shoes. High heel shoes.
High heel shoes. Not just any old shoes to do. You see, high heel shoes he's looking at. In time, just seeing a pair of high heel shoes can cause what?
Arousal, but not.
Arousal, exactly. Remember, now we have the sexual arousal.
We gotta show some control.
Remember, the CR is usually not as strong as the UCR. So arousal is not quite as strong as the orgasm itself. Was that not classical conditioning?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Y'all need one more example of classical conditioning? Sure? You ready, Bernard? Okay. I'm going to give you a real story now. That theoretically could have happened, but I don't know. You know, I just made that one up. But this did happen to me. Most of the time, your phobias have been the result of classical conditioning. What's a phobia? We're going to talk about
Fear of
that.
heights or fear of like fire.
Examples of a phobia.
It's
But a
when you're
phobia
scared of something.
is an intense fear, not just an intense fear, but it's when it's what we would say in the clinical terms, it's oh crap, my head, my thoughts are dead. I've memorized this so many times. Irrational fear, intense irrational fear. So, like I said, as a clinical psychologist, just because someone has an intense fear of something doesn't mean we call it a phobia that they need treatment for, if it's irrational. And then, if it's irrational, it's likely to impair the quality of your life. That's what we mean by phobias. Many of our phobias are the result of classical conditioning. When I was a little girl, I developed the phobia of honeycomb cereal. That sounds like it's probably irrational, doesn't it? How can you be afraid of honeycomb cereal? But I held this phobia until I was well in my 20s. And then one day I was in a psychology class, and the teacher asked us who has phobias, and somebody said, oh, I have phobia. I have a phobia of honeycomb cereal. So he elected me to treat in the class to show you how to treat phobia. So we're going to do that at the end of the quarter. But right now, what I want to do with the phobia is to show you how it was classically conditioned. So, when I was about 5 years old, my favorite cereal was honeycomb cereal. I loved it. I just carried a box around with me everywhere and loved my honeycomb cereal. And I'm the middle of 3 children. How many middle children do we have in here? You know, awful, be a middle child. We get screwed there which way. But anyway, I'm the middle child, the unlucky one. And I'm wanting to go outside and play with and take my honeycomb with me. And Mama says, no, 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 no. Don't carry the honeycomb outside. She said, it's sweet, and the bees will attack you. Bees will sting you if you carry that honeycomb outside. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm always, I think, above my brother and sister in intelligence, and so I'm thinking, she's just tricking me. She's just saying that so I won't eat up all the honeycomb. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sneak it outside. And I snuck my box of honeycomb outside against Mother's wishes. It's her command. And would you believe what happened to me?
Bees attacked you.
I'm not kidding. Not just big yellow jackets. Y'all know how aggressive yellow jackets are? Yellow jackets just swarmed all over me. And I'm screaming. I have a crush on the little neighbor boy. That's I think my brother. And back then little girls wore dresses all the time. My mother comes out there and just yanked off my dress in front of the neighbor boy. So not only do the bee stings hurt, but now I'm embarrassed because he sees my slip. Okay? From that time on, I was 5 years old until I was probably 25 years old. No honeycomb anywhere around me. I don't bring it to the house anymore. When I went to the grocery store with Mama, I wouldn't even go down to the grocery store. The aisle with the cereal. It's no more cereal in our house, so honeycomb or any kind. Stay away from it. I have a fear of particularly honeycomb cereal. Was that fear classically conditioned?
Yes.
How was it? What are the components?
Beans and cereal.
Okay.
You gotta start with the unconditioned response.
You know what? You can start either way, whatever helps you, truly. Well, and I'm going to give y'all some in a minute. You're going to work together on them groups and do them. But I think lots of times you will start with the new behavior. That's the new behavior that's emerged. So start at the bottom. I think sometimes it helps you. What's my new behavior?
You do not want that cereal.
I have a phobia, right? I have a fear. I have a fear of what?
Honeycomb.
I have a fear of honeycomb. That's what my fear is of. So my CR, my learned response is fear to honeycomb. Why do I have a fear of honeycomb?
Because you took the honeycomb outside and got stung with lunch.
Notice that the UCS and the UCR tells you the why component. Why do I have a fear of honeycomb? Say it again.
You took the honeycomb outside.
Honeycomb? Well, not honeycomb. The honeycomb is associated with what? What happened to me?
Oh, yeah.
Bee sting.
Oh, yeah.
And bee sting left what? It led to what?
Embarrassment.
Without being naked, that's embarrassing. Nearly naked. It at least pain, didn't it?
Hey.
Bee stings hurt. It was just double Brooklyn because I was also embarrassed near nakedness. But in this case, bee sting leads to pain. Mama didn't even really have to tell me that. If a bee stings you, it's going to hurt. Okay. UCS and the UCR. The UCS gets associated with something, though. Bee stings get associated with the cereal, honeycomb cereal. And now I'm afraid of cereal. How simple that is. Is it simple?